All right. So let's go ahead and get started for the afternoon. Jane, if you want to move to that next slide. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for logging on today and welcome to a webinar about Harvest. Some of you might remember the previous name, Harvest Thermal. So my name is Taylor Grosvenor. I'm the residential sales manager and product manager here at Small Planet Supply. So for those of you who might be new to our company, Small Planet Supply is a North American company dedicated to the mission of creating both classic and modern high-performance buildings. In keeping with our mission, our company supplies and educates designers, homeowners, and builders in the use of energy-efficient building materials and mechanical systems. With 2 warehouse locations, a knowledgeable customer service team, and an online store open 24 hours a day, we can help you with your high-efficiency building project needs. So whatever your building future holds, we hope you'll plan it with the planet in mind. So today we have an exciting webinar presentation lined up for you about Harvest. Our main presenter is Jane Milia, co-founder and CEO of Harvest. So some housekeeping about today. This presentation is being recorded and you will all receive a copy. We will send a follow-up email. Takes 3 to 5 business days or so to clean it all up, send it all out. It'll have the presentation, the recording, and other resources to help you get more information. We do have a Q&A section down below, so feel free to ask questions as you think of them. We're going to be answering them at the end of this session. And also know that we do offer complimentary consultations. So if your question is maybe just a little too specific or part of a grander conversation, do feel free to log on to our website and schedule that consultation and speak with one of our staff about your project. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Jane with Harvest.
Thank you very much, Taylor, and thanks for the introduction. And most of all, thanks for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to talk about Harvest and answer your questions as they come up during the conversation. All right, so I'm going to start with a couple of fun facts. Did you know that a massive 2/3 of the energy used in most homes is for just 2 things, heating and water heating? And that's where most of your energy spend is going as well. I certainly was surprised when I heard that number. Also, those 2 things, heating and hot water, for our homes represent a massive 10% of America's emission problem. So heating and hot water is both a high cost for our homes, it's also a high emissions. And these are the 2 problems that Harvest is really tackling. So I'm going to share what we do and then share a little bit about the results that we've been getting. So what does Harvest do? We deliver heating and hot water to your home, always using the cleanest and cheapest electricity. We built the Harvest Pod. It's a control unit, and this orchestrates third-party off-the-shelf devices. Some of you may be familiar with the Senko 2 heat pump, that heat pump water heater. We use that. We're going to operate it when electricity is clean, cheap, and abundant, and when that heat pump is going to be most efficient, usually in the middle of the day. That Senko 2 is going to store energy in the tank that is carefully stratified, and we're managing its state of charge as a thermal battery. What that means is in summer, we may only need to heat 1/3 of the water in the tank, and in the winter, we may be heating it twice during the course of the day, all based on the expected load of your household over that coming 24 hours. And then we deliver that heating and hot water to your home using conventional systems. Here you can see forced air. We also do radiant systems. What this means is we're completely decoupling the time when you run the heat pump, i.e. draw electricity, from the time when you're able to benefit from the comfort of heating and hot water in your home. And that gives us a lot of power in terms of enhanced efficiency, lower costs, and lower emissions. Now, one thing that's been added to our portfolio relatively recently is that the system is fully compatible with AC. And in fact, we can integrate with AC, but also with regular heat pump systems, which has the added boost of adding additional capacity if you're in a colder area or have a larger home. So what does the pod actually do? Well, the pod is figuring out what are your usage going to be over the next 24 hours. And it's going to take into account your weather forecast to make sure we're estimating that accurately. It's going to optimize the Senko 2 operation, but also if you're using it, the direct heat pump AC. and minimizing costs and emissions for both those devices. It's managing the tank stratification, managing the thermal battery, and really making sure you have a comfortable, quiet and safe home. And the results are really strong. Our systems are cutting emissions in home after home by 90% compared to gas, and by about 50% compared to a conventional heat pump system. What does that really mean? Well, over the life of a system, an average Harvest home is going to avoid the release of about 56 tons of CO2. That's a bigger emissions reduction than you get from switching from a gasoline car to a Tesla or to any electric vehicle. So the impact of a Harvest system is bigger than that. It's huge. But even more importantly, we're doing that while saving money. Our systems save money in two ways. One, because it's a very efficient system. We're able to run that heat pump when it's most efficient in the middle of the day because we're decoupling it from heating delivery. And also, when available, we're able to do arbitrage based on time of use rates or day ahead price signals to always run the heat pump when that cost of electricity is lowest. That's unique. Typically, heat pump systems don't really reduce bills. We do, and that's really helping people adopt the system and transition to cleaner, but as well as cheaper home heating and hot water. So I wanted to dig in and ask you to imagine that you are a grid operator. And here is a day in your life. This is really going to help, I hope, clarify how Harvest is delivering those savings in both costs and emissions. So here you can see between midnight and midnight, the costs and the emissions of a grid operator vary substantially throughout the day. Often you have higher costs and emissions in the morning and the evening. Many utilities, many grids will have some solar or even a lot of solar in the middle of the day. That means that you would rather generate electricity or deliver electricity at that time than in the evening or in the morning when it's going to be harder for you to generate that electricity. Now, the challenge is that we all need to heat our homes at the same time. And that's typically mornings in winter and evenings as well. There isn't a lot of solar at those times of the day. And what that means is it's really adding load to the grid and driving the need for costly capacity upgrades. Indeed, we're seeing increasingly grids and utilities are increasingly seeing a peak load being mornings in winter as more heat pumps are added to the mix, increasing that burden. Now, the transition to heat pumps is happening. More heat pumps were shipped last year than furnaces in the US. So this is a trend that's happening. But the challenge is that this is really putting a cap on how much and how fast we can transition to electric solutions. So the future of heat pumps is really a different model. Heat pumps are in a way, the hero of home electrification, but we need to do it in a smarter way. This is a profile of a smart heat pump system, a Harvest thermal system, whereby we're able to run the heat pump at whatever time of day makes the most sense for the user, when it's cheapest, when it's cleanest, when it's going to be warmest, while delivering that hot water whenever you need it. Essentially, what we're doing is taking a heat pump, the Sanko 2, which is a really tremendous heat pump, and we're making it smarter and better by allowing it to load shift, making it also grid friendly and delivering savings to everybody. This is really how we scale home electrification, which is really great for the planet and for all of us. So it's not all about emissions, it's not all about costs. A lot of it's about comfort, right? Because heating and hot water really is an anchor for our home and for the comfort of our family. And Harvest delivers there as well. We have a net promoter score of close to 90%. Net promoter score is the answer to that question. Would you recommend this system to your friend, to your neighbor, to your family? Now, for context, a top quartile in the industry is about 64%. So 90% is really a very, very strong endorsement. And you can see this in home after home after home. In fact, our first home up in Portland, Oregon is Karen here. This is actually a second Harvest home. And really, we get a very strong performance for all of them. Contractors also like the system as well. Effectively, this is a system that's very differentiated. It's delivering heating and hot water while saving money. It's saving emissions more than any other system. It's a relatively high-end system, but it captures more incentives and tax credits than other systems, which really help make it affordable for homeowners. And so being able to onboard more and more and larger contractors, and are always happy to talk to more and bring more on board. Now, what does a deployment look like and what it working with now? So I'm just going to share a couple of photos of actual deployments. Here you can see a system where the tank is deployed in a corner of a garage. This is a 119-gallon tank. That's the size that we recommend for most homes. Because we're storing the water at high temperatures, 150 degrees, this actually gives plenty of ability to shift the load away from peak loads for most homes. Here you can see one where it's in a tank closet, and you can see it fits in quite nice and snugly. Here you can see a couple of other configurations. Here you can see where you've got the tank, the pod, and an air handler all in one same location. And here a case where you had a larger home. They had space for 2 tanks, which gave them more load shifting capability, and therefore more savings and emissions reduction capability. So some of you may have heard of Harvest before, and I just want to share this has been a very exciting year for Harvest. We spent a number of years really developing the core capability, the core technology, and now we're really able to fly with it and expand to it, bringing on board a lot of new exciting developments. So I want to share a little bit of that. So the core Harvest system, we're calling it Harvest Classic. This is the system that most of our homeowners have deployed, and this is the system that we've really started to build the business on. And with that, you have a Harvest pod that you saw in those images with a Sanko 2 heat pump water heater. Sanko 2 heat pump water heater is probably the best-in-class heat pump water heater available. I know that the folks at Small Planet Supply sell a lot of those devices. It uses CO2 as a refrigerant, which is the lowest global warming potential refrigerant you can have. So it's really great from a climate perspective, but it's also extremely efficient and therefore can help you save money. We also deployed a Harvest system with a specific air handler, which is the AirScape, manufactured up in Medford, Oregon, and an ECOA HVAC heat pump if you wanted cooling or if you needed a supplemental boost. And this worked really well, and you could deliver up to 3-ton capacity with this configuration. But recently we rolled out another device we're calling the Open. And this is the same pod, but it has the ability of being interoperable. Yes, you deploy the Harvest pod with a Sanko 2 air-to-water heat pump. But if your air handler, your AC unit, your heat pump unit can be any other device. If your contractor prefers to use Mitsubishi or Daikin, we can do that. If your new home builder prefers to work with Carrier, we can do that. This just gives a ton of flexibility to work with the contractor you choose, the device you choose, or if you've already purchased a heat pump, we can integrate with it and add the benefits of the Sanko 2 load shifting and domestic hot water, all with a clean electric solution. So this also helps reduce costs as you can deploy perhaps a cheaper carrier compared to a higher end ECOA, just looking at the overall cost to the homeowner. And it also allows us to deliver loads up to 4-ton capacity, really make it work for a much larger pool of homes. Now I'm going to dig a little bit into the details of what are the different configurations that we offer. So as I mentioned, the first device is the Harvest Classic. This is what we've been working with for many years. It's the Harvest Pod, the Sanko 2 heat pump water heater, a hydronic coil that allows us to transfer the heat from the Sanko 2 to your heating system, to your air handler, the AirScape air handler, and an ECOA heat pump, which is optional if you want cooling or if you want supplemental heat up to 3 times. The new device is the Harvest Open, and the top 3 rows are the same. But what's different is you can now work with any third-party air handler or a third-party DX heat pump outdoor unit to give you cooling, give you supplemental heat with any device of your choosing. We do also have a Radiant product, which works with a flat plate heat exchanger and then can deliver that warm water to your Radiant floor using a specific circulator pump as indicated here. And what are the use cases? Well, the first one, the Classic, we're continuing to sell that. That works really well if you have a smaller home with, say, a heating load up to 2 tons, or if you want cooling up to 3 tons. And we can deploy that with domestic hot water heating only or with cooling. And it gives you modulated heat delivery, which gives you a really high level of comfort. The Open is a device that we sell always with the cooling option. And that allows you to work with any device. Maybe you've already deployed a heat pump in your home and you want to retrofit with the Sanko 2 to get the hot water as well. So load shifting that Harvest Thermal delivers. This can deliver up to 4 tons of heating load as well, which is really important for larger homes. Then, of course, the Radiant. This is a thermal battery solution for Radiant. So deliver Radiant, but we're always using the cleanest, cheapest electricity. You're getting your Radiant heating just whenever you need it. I wanted to share some examples because there are so many different configurations in homes, right? Existing homes, they're all a little quirky and everybody's got their own particular configuration. So I wanted to share a few examples of cases that we're seeing day after day. So let's imagine you're a homeowner, you've got a gas furnace, you've got a gas water heater, you don't want AC, and maybe you don't even want AC in the future. The Harvest system delivers night cooling. We're able to use the economizer to bring in cool air in the evening, and maybe that's enough for your location. In that case, we recommend the Harvest Classic. It's a high-performance system. Use the AirScape air handler. We can use night cooling if you want to bring in cool night air or not, depending on your situation. Now, let's imagine you've already bought a Senko 2 for your water heating, and you're really loving the experience it's giving you, but you're thinking, darn it, I could have deployed it with a Harvest system. Well, all is not lost. You can still do that. You can add the Harvest pod, either with the open or classic or radiant configuration. You can use that heat pump water heater that you've already got to start to deliver heating with load shifting to your home through radiant or forced air system. Let's imagine you've just bought a heat pump. You just bought a heat pump. It's delivering you cooling and heating, and you love the experience. And you still have a gas water heater, and you're thinking, well, maybe I could have deployed Harvest, but it's too late. Well, it's not too late. You can keep that heat pump. You can deploy the Senko 2 for your water heating and benefit from the high efficiency performance, the low GWP refrigerant, and a really, just great heat pump water heater. You can couple that with a Harvest pod, and you're going to get the load shifting for the water heating, the load shifting for your heating. You can keep the cooling, and that heat pump is going to deliver supplemental heat on the coldest days of the year, or if you've got a larger home. And finally, if you've got a radiant floor and a gas boiler, yes, we can do that. Our radiant system works just really well for that. We have something new that's going to be coming in a few months, so it's not available right now, but I'm really excited to start to announce that. Let's imagine you've got a gas furnace with AC and you want to switch to all electric, but you want to figure out what is the most economic way to do that. Can you keep your AC? Can you keep your furnace, perhaps? The Harvest Open will soon allow you to keep your furnace for supplemental heat. It will allow you to, that essentially means you can keep your AC unit. You can or not choose to keep your gas furnace in. And the Senko 2 is going to deliver most of the heating for the year. All of your hot water will load shift it and just use the AC for cooling and just use the furnace for supplemental heat on a few days of the year if necessary. So that is a really cost-effective way to electrify your home. So a little bit more news. When we started working with Small Planet Supply, we were purely a California product. That's really just because I'm sitting in California and I started selling local, and that made a lot of sense. But over the past 9 months, that has changed significantly. We now have product deployed in Oregon, in New Mexico, in Alberta, which is ultra cold location, and soon in Vermont. And we're really excited to be partnering with Small Planet because we want to get more and more homes, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, and share the Harvest system with them as well. So what do we have to offer? We reduce bills substantially. We reduce climate emissions more than anybody else. And we have delivered best in class efficiency and, of course, comfort because it's your home. So we really look forward to answering your questions and seeing if we can make your home a Harvest home. Thank you. I look forward to your questions.
All right, I'll start at the top. Are there two different heat pump units, one for heat and one for AC?
Absolutely. So right now, if you were to electrify your home and transition from gas, you'd have a heat pump water heater and you'd have a heat pump for your heating and your cooling. So we also at the moment need 2 heat pump systems. If you want the cooling, if you only want the heating, we can do it with just one. The Senko 2 will deliver all your heating and hot water. But if you want the cooling, we do need a second device. The nice thing, though, is that Harvest is going to be optimizing the second device as well. So, for example, let's imagine you're in the depth of winter and it's super cold. We're going to run the secondary heat pump during the day instantaneously when electricity is cleanest and cheapest, when that heat pump is going to be most efficient as well, because heat pump efficiency varies a lot with temperature. So we can run it in the middle of the day. At the same time, we'll be running the Senko 2 to stock up that tank with hot water ready for your overnight heating need. And therefore, we do use heat pumps, 2 heat pumps in that case. we are optimized for both of them. We're reducing bills for both of them. And if you don't need the cooling, we can just make do with just one heat pump, the Senko 2, for just your heating and your hot water needs.
Great. Our next one, the thermal battery / water tank must be considerably larger than normal if you plan on load shifting by 6 to 12 hours. What have you found percentage-wise you need to oversize the storage tank to make this possible?
Yeah. So most of our homes are deployed with a 119-gallon tank. I'm just going to go back up to my image at the top. So this is a typical tank, 119-gallon tank. For smaller homes, we put in an 83-gallon tank. And for some larger homes who have space, they can put in a couple of tanks. So that is bigger than your typical water heater, right? A typical water heater is going to be about 50 gallons. Although if you put in a heat pump water heater, which is a non-split system, an integrated unit, you've got the compressor on top, which is actually increasing its size quite substantially. One of the reasons that 119-gallon tank is larger, but it does fit into many, many homes, right? In the majority of homes, we're able to fit that in without too much difficulty. One of the reasons we're able to do this with a 119-gallon tank rather than something larger is one of the characteristics of the Senko 2. The Senko 2 delivers water at much higher temperatures than a conventional heat pump water heater, 150 degrees compared to about 115 or 120. What that means is, let's imagine, compare domestic hot water delivery, right? If you need a shower at 115 degrees, and you're using a standard heat pump water heater, you have to deliver that water instantaneously, right? You can't dilute it because you need your shower to be at about 115 degrees. With the water that we're getting from the Senko 2 stored at 150, we're diluting that water 150 degrees with 60 to 70 degree water from the mains. And so to get to your 150. What that means is you've actually got effectively twice the capacity than you would with a regular heat pump water heater. That's why a 119-gallon tank is delivering substantial load shifting. It's not going to shift you for 24 hours, but it's going to allow you to shift for several hours away from those higher cost, higher emissions times.
Great, thank you. Is the Harvest still bound by the Senko 2's requirement of 25 gallons of domestic water each day? Or are you going to supply an 8K BTU hydronic system?
So
if you are also going to, sorry.
Are we going to so the Harvest system, actually I want to jump a little bit further on, actually. So the Senko 2, when used, say, with the Taco X block without a smart thermal battery, is limited to a peak capacity because if you don't know the state of charge of your tank, you have to be able to deliver heating instantaneously. So a traditional system with the Senko 2 is limited to about 8 or 10 kBTU in terms of heating capacity. And that's been a limitation. Now, with Harvest Thermal, and I want to talk to this chart because this explains what's a little bit different about what we're doing. And we're working closely with Eco2 systems, and our system is fully warranted for loads much higher than that 8 kBTU. And this is why. So the typical output, instantaneous output of a Senko 2 is going to be about 15 kBTU. You've got to reserve some of that for your hot water. So you've got to cap it to about 8 to 10 kBTU of instantaneous heating need if you don't have a thermal battery. But what Harvest is doing is in a way decoupling the heating delivery from the heating generation by the heat pump. Effectively, here you can see in the orange line a typical load profile of a home on, say, a cold day of the year. And you can see it's very variable, right? You have a much higher peak at certain times of the day. This house would be, say, a 3-ton load just for a few hours of the day and maybe just a few tens of hours of the year. But most of the time, it's actually substantially less because this is when you need to heat your home, the mornings in winter. So what Harvest does is you can size the Senko 2 to figure out what do I need to meet the average load on the coldest day of the year, not the peak load, but the average load across the day. Because the tank itself is a battery delivering the peak at different times. So you're going to use the energy stored in the tank plus the instantaneous delivery of the Senko 2 to meet the peak load. This is why a Sanko 2, the harvest system, just by itself, without a heat pump AC, will meet the needs of about 2-ton heating load. If you have a heat pump on top of that, we can then go up to about 3 tons. But basically, we're able to decouple the two, which is why we are able to give a higher capacity than you would get with a Taco X block, which doesn't have the thermal battery management capability that's really intrinsic to Harvest technology. Do you have any other questions?
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted.
Okay.
Classic blunder. Next question. Are you using the new refrigerant R454B?
So right now we're using the Sanko 2. And for the other heat pump, it can be whatever heat pump you choose. So we let the heat pump developers work on the heat pump technology. We take the best and just work with them. So, if Sanko 2 comes up with a device with that new refrigerant, we'll be able to use it. And for the other heat pump, we'll use whatever refrigerant they happen to be using.
Thank you. Next, my carrier furnace went out. Are you saying I can buy a new gas furnace and your Harvest Thermal can work off of that?
So not yet is the answer. So if your carrier furnace has just died, my request, and depending on the heating load of your home, my request would be just replace it with a heat pump system. A Harvest system would be ideal, but a heat pump system, I'd be good with that because we need to help homes transition from gas. It's just every gas furnace we put in today is going to stay there for the next 20 years. So it's better to transition if we can. But if you do have a gas furnace, in the coming months, in 2024, we'll be able to keep the gas furnace, add another coil in the blower, and deliver hydronic heat, which is mostly going to be coming from the Sanko 2. And then we're delivering supplemental heat from the furnace, maybe on the coldest days of the year, if needed.
All right. And then you've talked about this a little bit, but probably good to kind of bring it home again. If you want AC, do you always need to have a second heat pump?
So if you want active cooling, traditional AC, yes. However, the Airscape air handler works as an economizer. It can draw in heat, draw in cool air. If it's colder outside at night than it is in your home, it can automatically be set to draw in cool air and distribute it through your ventilation system. Nicely filtered, nice and quietly. And so you get that cooling. We see a lot of people, particularly on the coast, who are opting for that. Folks who are more inland tend to be going for the AC. And if you go for the AC, yes, you do need that second heat pump.
All right. And then do you have to use the Sanko 2 or can it be any heat pump capable of producing 150 plus?
But right now we are working exclusively with the Sanko 2. It's a phenomenal heat pump. It really is the best heat pump water heater out there. And we're just really, really happy working with it.
Perfect. Okay, I got a two-parter, so give me a second to scroll to the second one. So first part is, I'd love to know more about the cooling side for use here in Arizona. And as a follow-up, what is the pod for cooling? How does it load shift the cooling side? I'm assuming the tank is the thermal battery, but that's always going to be hot for water and heating. And as a little note, installed Sanko heat pumps, they are amazing.
Yes, I love the heat pump, so yes. So the Harvest Thermal, what we're doing is load shifting for this 2/3 of the energy use, which is your heating and hot water. We are not today load shifting for cooling. That will likely change in the next 2 years. But today, what we're doing is focusing on these two parts of the pie. Because in a way, this is the problem. This is the bigger problem because this is a new load that's being added to the grid. Because this has conventionally been gas. And we're adding it to the grid, whereas AC has always been electric. So this is the real pain point for home electrification. It's taking this huge load, transitioning from gas and adding it at these worst times of the day, which is just when the grid has no capacity to do it. So this tank right now, sorry, I'm moving about a bit. This tank today is doing a load shifting only for the heating side. In the future, we'll be able to do load shifting for the cooling. That will require a second storage device. That could be either sensible heat, as in hot water, or it could be phase change material, as in you may be familiar with Sun type device and that will be integrated in the future. But right now, I mean, the big problem really is that the load shifting for the heating and hot water. So sorry we don't offer it right now, but we had to focus on one thing.
Next question. Does the Harvest Radiant solution do radiant floor cooling?
It does not. It is heating on.
All right. Do you provide an API to interact with the Harvest system?
So we have an API for all our contractors to do the commissioning, and that allows them and us to be sure that everything is being set up appropriately at the start, and so that really just makes it easier for the contractor to install it. We will be providing a user interface for customers in the coming 6 to 9 months. Again, it's something that's been on our to-do list for a long time, but it hadn't actually made it up to the priority list. But it's something the team's beginning to work on right now.
All right. Air to water heat pump with Harvest. Has that been done?
So you mean a different air to water heat pump than the Sanco 2? So we're currently working only with the Sanco 2 air to water heat pump or heat pump water heater. There are possibilities in the future to look into other devices and potentially others that have integrated cooling. And that's certainly something that our CTO is looking into. But right now, the Sanco 2 delivers a phenomenal performance and works just good.
Here's a scenario. I'm building a new passive solar off-grid rammed earth house and plan to use the Sanco 2 for domestic hot water and radiant floor heating to achieve an all-electric home. Mm-hmm. How do you scale a system of this type? Do you have clients meeting this profile, purely solar with no grid?
So, I mean, I think the majority of homes are on the grid, but there is I'd say a modest minority of people who are interested in off-grid homes. Most of our homes are on the grid, right? They're drawing electricity from the grid. But the ability of the Harvest system to do this load shifting means that for that home, assuming you have solar, we're able to directly use the solar and maybe minimize the amount of electrochemical battery that you're going to need for that usage. But most of our homes are on grid. They're drawing electricity from the grid.
All right. Next question. I'm worried about a flood should the tank leak. One contractor said it should be ideally located outside. Would you agree?
No. You can put it in a drain pan. Otherwise, it has a long life and I haven't seen any leaks. So now, if you have a beautiful parquet floor, maybe it's not the right place to put it. But I have mine in my basement. Most people have them in the garage. They have them in a tank closet. You put it in a drain pan, but you really don't have much risk there.
Mm-hmm. I would second that too. We don't really have that come up much at all or ever so far.
Yeah, we haven't seen it. So.
All right. When do you anticipate expanding into Utah?
So, as soon as time allows, we have a product now that's proven to work in a range of climates. And so the question is, what's the most effective way for us to reach customers? And so we're always open to working with contractors who are, experienced with heat pumps, who do manual J's, who are comfortable sizing a home and willing to adopt the new technology. We're willing to train them and bring them on board. And so we are open to that type of relationship, but we're not actively selling our product in those geographies just yet.
All right. Let's see. Going back to API, I've got other load shifting smart systems like my EV charger and solar battery that are trying to soak up excess solar. Do you have integrations or provide an API that would allow others to orchestrate load shifting systems with Harvest?
So, I've been chatting to the SPAN team about what they do and how they do that. But right now we do not have that integration. Essentially, whether it's from your solar or from the grid, in the middle of the day, that's when you got the most solar electricity. So even if it's in excess of you personally are generating, that is usually the best time to run your heat pump. It's also going to be a lot more efficient. In fact, I want to just go down and share a chart on that. I believe I have it. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the big advantages of running in the middle of the day. Yes, there's solar. And even if you don't have panels on your roof, there's solar on the grid, but also being able to run it in the middle of the day means that we are gaining, a couple of points or a point of COP, a coefficient of performance efficiency effectively, compared to what a regular heat pump that's operating instantaneously does. So we don't yet have that integration. We could do it in the future, but even so, even if we exceed the capacity of solar, it's a good time to run that heat pump.
All right. Next question. Do you have a list of California contractors applying this system?
Yeah, we have a lot of contractors, primarily in the Bay Area, but also Sacramento, San Luis Obispo, a couple in Santa Barbara. I mean, the best thing to do is reach out to us on our website. You've got to contact us and send us your zip code, and we can put you in touch with the contractor who can work with you.
Great. Sorry, we got a lot of questions. I'm just kind of trying to wade through them. Can you share your current scale, sales volume, install numbers?
Yeah, so we've sold about 180 units now, so over 180 units now. We've got over 110 of those deployed in the field. And we're ramping up. We grew by a factor of 4 last year, and we expect to exceed that this year and maybe get close to 1,000 units by the end of this year. I hope did that answer all the points of that question, Taylor? I'm not sure that I get it all.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
What sort of routine maintenance, if any, is required? Is the system like electric vehicles requiring far less maintenance than gas vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's just a heat pump. Heat pumps basically don't require much maintenance. You might want to change your filters at some point. The pod contains a mixing valve. So over the life of the pod, you're probably going to swap out the cylinder in that valve. If any replacement is needed, everything is field replaceable. The cover of the pod comes off. You can swap out a mixing valve. You can swap out a circulator pump, which may happen once over the life of the system, but it's pretty minimal. I think what's really important, though, is that there is actually a lot of data on what's happening in the system and a lot of diagnostics going on. So as a contractor, you don't spend hours and hours trying to diagnose what's wrong. We can say, you know what, you didn't connect your temperature sensor appropriately. In fact, one of our contractors I overheard him saying to some colleagues, I installed the Harvest system and I got a message saying, you forgot to connect the temperature sensor. And lo and behold, he checked and he hadn't connected the temperature sensor. So it took him minutes to fix. Whereas otherwise, it might have taken him a long time to try and diagnose what he did wrong. So that's really just saying that we've got the diagnostics, which makes it really easy to maintain when maintenance is needed.
All right. Does this system make sense in a cold climate like Canada, where peak rates and peak grid usage is midday and peak load is at night for heating?
Yeah, so the system works really well for Sanko 2 is a cold climate heat pump, right? So it's going to perform better than many in cold climates, and all heat pumps lose capacity at really cold temperatures. In the coldest environments, you're going to need some kind of backup, right? It might be gas, it might be electric resistance boost for the coldest hours of the year. In terms of, grid profile, actually, I have another chart somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Just bear with me 1 second, please. So the different grids have got different profiles, and it depends on the energy source that they're using. But we are seeing a trend towards more renewables coming on the grid, be it wind, be it solar, and that's adding an uneven profile. And then also, sorry, just let me share this. I think I've got a slide which is going to be useful here. Okay, so I'll move on. But what we're seeing though is increasingly the load, the peak loads is increasingly becoming that morning and that night as people are beginning to transition from fossil fuel usage to electric, adding load to the grid. And so while not all grid operators are in that situation today, that is a trend. And there's a report that I'd be happy to share as in the backup material, just showing how that trend is evolving across the US and then further up north as people are adding that load in the night, in the morning, and as more renewables are being added at times which do not coincide well, and you get this mismatch. That's why a lot of grid operators are working on how do we add, utility scale electrochemical batteries, which is one way to remediate that, but it's a really expensive way. With the harvest thermal system, you don't need an electrochemical battery because your tank is a battery. This is the most cost-effective way to deliver storage. Electrochemical batteries are great for electric loads, but thermal batteries are great for thermal loads. So while not every utility is in that situation today, that is a growing trend in more and more utilities. So a harvest system is really future-proofing you as that change happens.
All right, thank you. The next question, will you be able to add a secondary coil from the Sanco in the air handler, for example, a carrier?
Typically, yes. In most cases, yes. Now, does that heat pump have a 24-volt control? That's the thing we're really looking for, or is it a custom control? If it's 24-volt control, we can pretty much always do that. Then there's a question of space, right? If you don't have enough space to add that module in wherever your air handler is, that can be a constraint. But in most cases, it works out fine. So again, talk to us, talk to our contractors, and we'll figure it out.
Okay. All right. Someone else asked about this, but I'm not sure we're fully answered. Sanco 2 recommends you use at least 25 gallons of domestic hot water per day to maintain tank stratification and efficiency. Yep. Does the pod manage this issue?
Yeah. So Sanco 2 does not require that if you have a harvest thermal system.
Excellent. Okay, jumping back into cooling. What does a harvest do in the cooling modes? Is it switching the heat pump from refrigerant to hydronic and pumping to the coil?
So a harvest thermal doesn't actually do the cooling, although the thermostat is connected to the pod, and the pod is going to be calling the air for cooling. But apart from that, it is not modulating that heat pump in cooling mode. What it does do is really control it when it's in heating mode to allow it to optimize the overall electricity use and maximize the efficiency of the overall system. But for cooling, it's just going to run as it would normally. No storage, no better, no worse than a conventional AC unit.
All right. Got a couple more, so I think we're doing great on time. Is the hot water coming from the same tank that is used for heating?
Yeah, this is an SF61 certified fully potable system. So a heat pump tank pod is a potable system. So this potable water is used for your domestic hot water. Yeah.
Okay. Can the harvest pod control a combi boiler as a backup for radiant heating and domestic hot water when needed?
So right now, no, but that's something that, as I mentioned earlier, that we'll be rolling out the ability to integrate with a furnace for a hybrid solution. Now, we need to have a look and see what will be the difference for a combi boiler as opposed to a furnace. So that would be a gas boiler. I'm assuming that's a gas combi boiler, right?
Didn't say, but do comment back if you had more to ask on that.
We do have cases, a project that we're currently working on with a multifamily unit where they have combi boilers, which are delivering heating through a fan coil plus domestic hot water. And The challenge there is they have one single unit already delivering heating and water. Electrifying those units is difficult because conventional means that you're going to have a space conditioning unit with furnace and then separate a heat pump for water heating. We're able to go in and just swap out that gas boiler, which is delivering both heating and hot water, with the Sanko 2 tank and pod. And they can keep the distribution as is and not make any other changes. So that may be one path. But if you really need, for some reason, to keep the gas boiler, that would be down the road with the next development. And I'd need to check that it's going to work because we're really focusing on the furnace rather than the boiler right now.
All right. Next question. Can you comment on the criteria one should consider as far as connecting the Harvest to a 12-panel solar system? Are there advantages, in other words, to having them work together or separately?
So right now we are not connected to the inverter, right? So we're not tracking what your solar generation is. And that may vary, right, depending on the weather in your particular area. That can come over time. But for me, a mantra I always say to the team is perfect's the enemy of good, right? You can delay deploying a product because you don't have something, or you can roll it out right now and deliver a lot of benefits. And I think this chart really says why, because whether you have solar on your roof or not, somebody has got a solar panel with sun on it. And so basically we're going to run it at the times when you would be generating solar, assuming it was sunny in your location. And so right now we don't have that connection with the inverter. That can come over time, and that could be an upgrade. But right now we're really just saying, when is it optimal, just generally for solar.
All right. Going back to cooling, is the air handler coil hydronic or conventional refrigerant in this system?
So for the heating side, it's a hydronic coil because that's the hot water from the Sanko 2. And then for the cooling, it is a conventional refrigerant coil. So there are two coils, one for the cooling, one for the heating.
All right. And then kind of working on the Sanko side of things, another drawback of the Sanko 2 is the need to protect from freezing. My design temp is 4 degrees Fahrenheit, and backup power is going to be difficult. Any solutions? Freeze protection for the Sanko, backup power is not likely.
Yeah, I think the backup power is the challenge there. I don't know if a small battery would be an approach. I know that our team has been working on exploring that for our upcoming deployments in Vermont. I'd be happy to put you in touch with the person on our team who was digging into that. That wasn't me, unfortunately. And let's see what they came up with for that particular scenario. And so if you give your name to Taylor, I can happily put you in touch with the team who worked on that.
Excellent. Couldn't you run cold water through the air handler like a valance system for a cooling scenario?
Certainly. The Sanko 2 only delivers hot water. And so that's just, if you're working with the Sanko 2, you're not going to get cooling. Also, you need a really large hot water tank to be able to deliver measurable cooling using sensible heat, which is why phase change material is probably the way to go if you wanted storage for your cooling.
All right. Sorry, I'm trying to read at the same time. Where can I find pricing? So you can contact our sales team, either USA or Canada, by phone or email. Or for those of you in the Harvest territory, Jane, how would you like them to get in contact?
So just go on our website. There's a button called Get Quotes. You can provide your information there. We try and make it as streamlined as possible. And then we'll put you in touch with somebody in the California area who can service you.
Wonderful. And then we had confirmation that earlier scenario was a gas combi boiler. Okay, I haven't pre-read this, so let me hopefully not butcher this. I heard a question about minimally using 25 gallons a day. Not sure what that was about, but given that water may become a scarce resource, How would you anticipate such an increase in water prices affecting savings, especially since it is a significant financial investment to install such a system?
So that 25 gallon usage for the Sanko 2 a day is a requirement to allow them to deliver a cool return temperature to the Sanko 2. The Sanko 2's efficiency is highly dependent on managing the return temperature, and using 25 gallons is a way to do that. The harvest system, what we're doing is we're actually controlling the heat transfer through the delivery, and that's a large part of what the pod does. We're able to return hot water to the Sanko 2 even without any domestic hot water use at 85 degrees Fahrenheit or less. And what that means is we are actually in the sweet spot in terms of efficiency. Let me go to a chart where I've actually got that here. So this is why that 25 gallon usage, which is really to make sure that you're getting a good return temperature to the Sanko 2, is not necessary with the harvest system. So that's necessary with other systems where they're not managing the return temperature. With the harvest system, we're delivering cool water back to the heat pump anyway. So that's not a requirement. So the usage of water is not, you use the hot water that you need to use. You don't have to use more if you have a harvest system just to meet an arbitrary goal.
All right, thank you. I'll let you answer this, Jane, and then I'll potentially have some stuff to add on to it at the end. I don't know where this person's located. Are there any display harvest systems available to see?
So, Taylor, I'll let you take the case for your territory.
Yeah.
We do not have any display units. If you're in my area, I'd be happy to show you the one in my home. Okay. And that's always a pleasure to meet people who are interested in the device, but we do not have this display system.
Okay. And then on the small planet supply side, I'm not sure where this person is, in the US, but if you're within our reach in kind of the Seattle, Washington area or up in BC, we do have what's called the Better Building Coach, which is our bus full of numerous products, including a harvest Sanko system. So we can drive that to a shop for training or to an event to show it off, or you're free to come and see us in one of our showrooms and we can make sure that is available. And then we do have, while you can't go see it in person, we do have really good blog post interviewing a homeowner who has had it installed in 2 different homes now, both in California and now up in Oregon. So while you can't go see, feel, touch that is something that has some really good feedback and some pictures. So if you have more questions about that, definitely reach out to us and we can see how we can help with maybe getting a little bit more in front of you with the harvest. Okay, and I think as of right now, this is our last question. We do have 5 minutes, so if anyone's holding back, type them out now. But as of right now, this might be our last one. Do you send software updates to the harvest pod so that deployed pods get the new functionalities you're developing?
Absolutely. As long as you're connected, right? I mean, the pod can act autonomously. So your internet's down, it's going to be fine. It's going to keep load shifting. In fact, if you don't want to be connected, it's going to operate. And you may, if your rate schedule changes, need to update it manually in the system. But otherwise, yeah, you get over-the-air upgrades. It's like a Tesla car, right? You get the upgrade over the air. Same with the harvest pod.
Great. One last question came in. Will the recording be available? Yes, this whole thing has been recorded. We will send an email to you, all of you next week. It'll have the slide deck, the recording, some contact us links, but feel free to jump the gun and get ahead of and contact any of our sales department, USA or Canada, or schedule a consultation on our website. Oh, we got some more in. People are having those last minute thoughts. Tego X block is less than 3K. I believe it's USD. Please discuss advantages of harvest in pricing terms.
So Tego X block is great, but it is limited in terms of capacity for the home. So it's limited to 8 kBTU. So if you wanted to meet the need of a larger home, 16, 24, 36 kBTU, you'd have to put in multiple Senko heat pumps. That is a significant challenge in terms of cost for most homes. Most homes have a much higher heating lead than that 8 kBTU. With the Harvest system, you can get up to 24 kBTU with just the Senko system. So that's 3 times the capacity. And so the pod is going to be slightly more expensive than a Taco X block, but not a whole lot more expensive. And yet you have so much more capacity. In addition, we're shifting the load. So the heat pump is going to be more efficient, and you're able, if available, to capture time of use rates, giving you savings from 30% if you've got time of use rates, but about 15 to 20% without time of use rates. So that actually more than makes up for any delta in cost pretty quickly.
All right.
I'd say more importantly, this is really just a more pragmatic solution for more homes, right? It just has higher capacity.
Okay. Right. I had the unfortunate experience of my Tesla system going down and never received the notice. This was February 2023, and I only learned about it accidentally. Mm-hmm. Do you send out emails regarding disconnect? I never received the email from Tesla, so monitoring did not take place for over a year.
So, yeah, so we have a dashboard where we have a tracking in place for all of our systems with alerts to the Harvest team should any of them go offline. And what that means is we know exactly what's happening in the space and are able to reach out to a customer either directly or through the contractor or distributor to say, hey, your site's been down for a day, what's happening, and figure it out. So I think the good thing is we have the dashboards and the alerts that allow us to have that visibility. So, none of our customers are forgotten or neglected as a result. That's a classic alert that you need to have in place. And that's kind of one of the first alerts that we implemented.
All right. That concludes our open questions. 12:59. We all did a great job. Questions presenter. Okay, so thank you, Jane. I can turn my video back on now that I don't have to worry about doing my open mouth reading face. So thank you so much, Jane. That was a wonderful presentation. And just a reminder again for everyone, this was recorded and everyone will receive a follow-up email next week. Feel free to reach out to Small Planet Supply and or Harvest Thermal directly via phone or email prior to that. And please join us for our next webinar series. We're going to have a ventilation, centralized versus decentralized, coming up in a few weeks in May. So you can all log on or register for that on our events page. So again, thank you, Jane, and thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.